Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Street Day 136. That is correct, 136 days. Joined today, it's the Darren List Diary birthday bash. I'm joined by Mr. Darren Watson himself over there. Hi,
Hello,
Darren.
love. How you doing? You well?
I'm great, thank you. And also the ever famous special guest, Mr. Sam Morgan, right here. Hi, Sam.
Hey lads, how we going?
Doing great. Yeah, it's a very exciting time. Let's get this. There we go. We'll hit one of those. Did that work? Did you guys see that?
Oh wow, we've got a budget for the
yeah, yeah. We found a fiver outside, so we really upgraded
Splashing
our equipment. Yeah. So hello and welcome to the show. Thank you to everyone for joining us live on Twitch. Podcasters, thanks for staying hydrated, and thank you to everyone on Patreon. Want to shout out some people before we get started. Delver Chris, thanks for leaving us a review on iTunes yesterday. Paul Phillips, thanks for your comment on YouTube. And Heinrich, Haidar, and DeBolt, thanks for joining Patreon yesterday. Now, both Heinrich and Haidar were, I think, either Icelandic or Swedish names, and they're definitely not said correctly. However, they're kind of what your names are, so thanks to you guys. We're also joined by, so that's it. We're all good. Darren, Sam, how are you both?
I'll start off the show with a bit of tragedy because that's what half of these shows are. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. We lost our rabbit Pino. He popped his clogs recently.
Who did?
So that
the tortoise.
Yeah, Pino did. No, not a tortoise. He's still going strong with his Lego wheel. Bless him. He looks absolutely miserable at the moment. But yeah, we lost our poor pony. But the good news is we've Alex heard about a bunny that needed help. Because she's got a skin condition. She doesn't grow her hair on her belly or her feet or the backs of her ears. So no one would rescue her. And she'd been in the rescue centre for 7 months. So 2 days later, we've now got that bunny. She's living with us. And we've called her Mavis. Bless her. She's in the garden at the moment. I'm terrified of her because they haven't clipped her claws. So I assume they were terrified of her as well. So whenever I go sort of near her, she sort of like scrabbles at me a little bit. So I can only assume she's scared of men because Alex, she gets on really well with Alex. So at the moment, we've got a bunny that I think is going to probably kill me in my sleep. But Alex is very happy. So that's good news.
And Darren, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on the Darren List Diaries Reddit, FYI, I'm the only member if anyone wants to join me. I
understand what Reddit is, but yeah, perhaps you can.
Yeah, it's okay. On there's a conspiracy theory going. I don't know who the author is, but that you actually, as much as you might claim to be a vegetarian, all these animals that keep dying around you, you're actually secretly eating them. Or like drunken binges late at night, and then the show is your way of kind of like confessing it in a kind of dark, twisted, like serial killer. Any comment on that rumor?
Our garden is a pet cemetery.
Wow,
we've had a shit year. Yeah, we've had a shit. But then everyone has. To be fair, tell us. So that's the tragedy over with, and the rest of the show will be nice. I promise. How are you doing, Sam? Tell us some good things.
I'm in shock, mate. It's every time you jump on, it's alarming. The fatality rate there is alarming. I know you guys are trying to do the right thing, but it's a bit of a worry, bud.
Yeah, tell me about it. Perhaps my girlfriend's mad. I've just not noticed.
Okay, well, today's show is both Darren and Sam have got some lists for the list diary for you guys. I know Darren's got some stats on the list diaries we've done so far, but Sam, there's been some questions in the chat. You obviously were on Wednesday where you broke the internet like a Kardashian. Do you want to give us your actual app take? Do you want to finish that off? Because we didn't get that off you the other day.
No, look, I think suffice to say I've done some work in that space, and there's best practice, there's better practice, there's moderate practice, there's poor practice. These guys are fucking hopeless. They're in the fucking hopeless practice branch, and we shouldn't be surprised that they botched it up. So a bit of free advice for them: buy off the shelf make some minor tweaks. All you're doing is selling us a database. And fix Azir, for fuck's sake, fix Azir. It's embarrassing that Azir hasn't been updated. That's the long and the short of it, I think.
I think that's very, very fair. Yeah, and I think everyone in the Twitch chat will also agree with you. I basically last night said anyone who downloaded the app and was like touting it online was a bootlicker at this stage. So that was a bit stronger.
wow.
That was a bit stronger than I needed it to be. Anyway, but also update Azir, so don't subscribe to Azir either. Obviously, uninstall that. Well, not uninstall it because we all need the free War Scrolls, which aren't updated, are they? Which is a nightmare also. Darren, have you got a new way of finding out the information for your War Scrolls?
Yes, I've been playing a little bit of TTS over the last couple of weeks, and it's great because it's got the Genius is on there. Not only do they put the models, but they also put all the War Scrolls as well. So I'm really finding that useful there's so much information and it's all free. Fucking great, eh? It's better than receiving it in WhatsApp chats and leaks and stuff like that.
It is.
So I've been enjoying that. Do you want to hear some stats from the year that we've been doing lists?
I'd love to.
So I did a bit of research. I popped these up on Twitter the other day, but I'll reiterate them because I think they're great. We've discussed 45 lists over the shows from 23 different factions and sub-factions, and we've discussed 180 different War Scrolls. Fucking hell. I wrote illegal lists or misunderstood a massive part of the list 5 times. It definitely feels like a lot more. And an Ether Quartz brooch was featured in 14 out of the 45 lists. That's like 1 in 3. So yeah, I definitely fucking love those, right? But I thought that was dead funny.
Well, can I get a question? Ask you both a question. Sam, I'll start with you to answer. Obviously, GHB's come out. What's your general kind of like reaction to? Because I haven't had the chance to ask you or Sam yet. What's your reaction to the GHB and how you think they did? And how do you think that it's kind of like? Do you think have there been any big movers and shakers that because of the release of the GHB?
Yes, I love it. I reckon it's an awesome book. It's the best GHB they've done from a battle plans perspective, and getting rid of unnecessary dice rolls, introducing a rule of 1 for damage prevention rolls is really awesome. The points are a joke. Like the points, it's just they just spin a wheel, and some of the factions they just ignore. So they're just like, oh, Gloomspite, they're awful, but we don't care. Or Sylvaneth, they're awful, but we don't care. But the actual like mechanics, the game itself and the scenarios, I'm really impressed with. And I love the introduction of, another way of determining minor victories in terms of using those secondary objectives, because I think kill points is just such a boring, probably outmoded, outdated sort of way of playing. So I'm really happy with the GHB. Like every year, the big winner is Ideneth. So they've gotten really good under this. And I think Beastclaw Raiders, specifically from the Ogre Moor tribe side of the book, with the Stonehorns being able to double score in focal points and the hero missions being a bit more prominent, I think they've also taken a bit of a boost. So Ideneth and Moor tribes, but really only one half of the Moor tribes book would be the two winners for me. Outside of like everyone knows Seraphon are silly and everyone knows Zench are silly, like they remain S tier.
Yeah, sweet. Darren, your thoughts?
I echo all of that, absolutely. And talking about points, just people rage about them, but just fucking accept it. Like they clearly don't give a shit, do they? Fucking move on.
I've always compared the points to that scene in the movie, and obviously Sam definitely will know this. The scene in the movie where the guy starts driving insanely and the passenger starts screaming, yeah. And they're like, they fear for their lives. I think just go the other way. Just like scream in joy. Yeah, just be like, oh, we're going faster. Go even faster.
Lean into it.
Yeah, just lean all the way in. Yeah, just wind the window down, open the top, arms out, start shouting. That's
no, I agree. But it's the only way to keep yourself sane, right? You can moan about it all you like, but it's not going to change. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you can put 27 eels on the board and start winning tournaments. So
Yeah, and also, if anyone wants to see me leaning into it live, you can see when I reacted to Croak still being the points he is, and I was just like, let's just do it. Let's just all take Croak. You have a Croak, I'll have a Croak, and then apparently he's sold out.
He's in all my Stormcast lists as well. Listen.
Well, he's sold out apparently, so like only some of us could have the Croak. This is a disaster. Okay, so what lists have you got, Darren? Oh, Sam, actually, just before you made a really good point, I think, about the types of lists that both you and Darren are quite well known for, but also the kind of philosophy behind it.
Yeah. So just in terms of like. Obviously, we know that a 2-drop change host that has a change host and a Fate Master is really strong, and you should win 5 out of 5 games most tournaments. But that's not particularly fun or interesting. And just trying to have a look at those lists that you feel like they're a strong 3 and 2, or maybe they're a 4 and 1. But if you get a golden run, or if you can get in your opponent's heads if you're using Darren's mind tricks, you can try and pinch that 5 and 0, and just that being a bit more rewarding. And as somebody that has an interest in designing the lists, trying to find those things at the margins that other people haven't taken, and looking at the sub factions that aren't necessarily the strongest in the book, but they're still absolutely playable, and what can we get out of them, and that sort of being something that's really enjoyable this time of year when you get those new points and those new missions. Because you get to go back and look over all the old things and see what all of a sudden might have a place that didn't previously.
Yeah, I echo that again. Absolutely. I think it's much more impressive when someone like Laurie finishes 7th with Sylvaneth, than someone that's like won with Change Host, etc.
Yeah,
we all know that's fucking possible, and the people that really care about respecting other people as gamers, they don't really care about that. So it's not. If you're looking for the respect of the community, then don't use bullshit. But if you don't care and you like winning, then use what you want. I'm not saying that. Never have list guilt. I don't believe in that. But it's much more impressive, isn't it? Using something that no one's thought of. That's the ultimate goal for me, anyway, personally. And I love to see it elsewhere. That's why I love to hear about. Love to see what you are doing over in Oz. I think they've got that attitude a little bit more than they do over here. That's certainly what it seems like from a UK perspective, anyway. And then there's people like you that can really champion that. So I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you very much.
There's a couple of guys here, Darren. We've got Chris Welfare up in Sydney. He does crazy stuff, and consistently does well even with suboptimal lists. And Joel McGrath out in Bendigo, who will run like 220 best list or something, and both of those guys, I think they epitomise it the most. And you're 100% right. If you see them on the top tables, you think, fuck, they're there with that list. Like, that's actually impressive.
Yeah.
Chris has also got like an encyclopedic knowledge of all of the books.
Oh, it's wild. Yeah.
He's just absorbs them, and you're like amazing. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Like, a big fan of Chris. Okay. Sorry, Darren. After you.
No. I was just scratching my head.
All right, perfect. So what lists have you guys cooked up? I guess actually before we talk about the lists that you've cooked up, really quick, it might be to quickly ask you where you think like the top of the pile sits and who sits at the top of the pile. I know you've said who's done well, but where you think like what the major threats are out there in the world before you talk about the list and maybe how you're trying to handle them.
For me, Eels, IDNF Eel spam is bonkers. It kills more now without the multiple DPR, and the missions, they're all battle line friendly, and that entire army's fucking battle line. And their allies that make them useful, like Ether Wings, have got cheaper. Like who the fuck thought that was a good idea? I don't know. I can't get my head around IDNF. They just get better and better each year, don't they? So I think they are a real contender. They're so strong. They're so good against everyone. So I think the missions where they weren't so good aren't so prevalent anymore. And then their hard counters. There's not really too much of a hard counter. Gits were pretty good against them. but they're not so good anymore because the endless spell change is only 3 endless spells. So that list's probably been gutted a bit. So yeah, I think eels are cracking. If I needed to win an event to save one of my animals, I would take eels.
Wow, that's a big endorsement. Yeah, I would say that also. I would also say that the big drop off that we saw with Legions of Nagash, because I think eels have come to prominence since we've not had the kind of like recycling the units sort of a situation, which Legion of Nagash could pull out. And I think since they dropped off and people have taken them less, I think maybe, and they had obviously great board control to like push out their deep strikes, and they could take a hit pretty much. And Idoneth couldn't really bring any shooting to deal with those backline characters who would go and, would be doing the resin or, would be doing the summoning or whatever it would be. So I think that drop off actually really pushed them up as well in a way. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, I've got Idoneth at the top as well. I recently started playing Idoneth. It was that this notion of you should understand what like you think you're going to play against, and then once I pushed them around, I was like, oh, this is fun. This is really strong. So it's like a drug. It's a bit addictive or whatever. So I'm trying to wean myself off it. And then the other two builds for me are a shooting Zench list. So a Zench list that might be putting out 150 damage across a shooting phase, or might be having a lot of high Ren damage. And then equally the shooting Seraphon build. So the skinks that do all of the mortal wounds, they're terrifying. The salamanders, they're really like or anything like that.
Oh, we just lost you a bit there, Sam. Darren, did we lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm willing Sam to come back.
Yeah,
skinks. Can you hear me? Skinks.
Yeah, we
just
heard
plain old.
Yeah,
plain old vanilla skinks. They're a bit of a worry. So you want things that have a good armor save and potentially have a mortal wound save, I reckon, in this meta, because there's armies that are pushing out quite a lot of damage from range, either through shooting or through magic.
Those lists as well that have been nerfed slightly by points, and it is a very slight nerf, certainly to Seraphon. They're better because there's no multiple DPRs again. That's such a huge change. I don't think they've been nerfed enough to take them down a peg. They're still fucking top tier, aren't they? Which is fine because Seraphon are relatively new, aren't they? So you want people to. They suffered so many years that it's good that the people that have been loyal to them have actually got a chance to shine now. So I don't really begrudge them that too much.
Me either. But I also think I echo Sam's suggestions. I think that we've all talked about salamanders quite a lot, but those 40 blocks of skinks, which are dirt cheap but can just absolutely smash.
They're the one.
Yeah, they're the one.
I bought 100 when I first saw the tome.
Yeah, they've got board control. They've got speed. You can summon more later. It's just wild. Yeah. I wrote a list and I was just like of Seraphon that I was going to run, and I just kept being able to add more units, and I was like, stop this! Like, why have I got more points?
Do you know that the sleeper choice in that book was the Troglodyte? So giving you the board wide arcane vassal, doesn't matter, whatever. Giving you that board wide is really strong. And I played against my mates recently, and he teleported it over, charged it into a block of 30 dwarfs, and he had it on a 0+ armor save, re-rolling ones. So he pinned me into my deployment zone, and then when it was his next hero phase, he cast all of Croak's spells through it board wide, which is that's crazy that it can do that. And his build actually went down in points overall through the GHB, so that's good.
That was my favourite bit. People were like, Croak's only good with all the characters. They're like, well, we're going to make some of the characters cheaper, specifically the Troglodyte. Yeah, it's pretty scary. Darren, what's your first list?
Okay, my first list is a list I've been using. I've actually got the benefit of playing a few games of it on TTS as well. So normally when we do a diary list, it's my best guess. It's Theory Hammer, isn't it? It's so I've actually had a benefit of playing a few games. Oh, Alex is just coming in. You'll get to say hello. So it's the Luminelf Realm Lords, and it's from one of the great nations that I think have been the least talked about. Iliatha, is that how you pronounce it?
No idea.
So
Sure.
I'll run you through what it's got, and then we'll sort of chat about it. So it's got the special character Stone King, Alvalinor. It's then got a Stone Mage General, and he's got the command trait Majestic, and he's got the Simulacra Amulet, and he's got Voice of the Mountain. We've then got the lady with the veil,
The Calathar.
Cathalar. There you go. Yeah, that'll do. She's got the Phoenix Stone. I couldn't be from. There's no Ether Quartz brooch as well anymore, so it's only right to discuss a Lumineth army that revolves around Ether Quartz. And she's got the protection of Heesh, so I get to see Heesh again. Excellent. And then we've got 20 of the Wardens, 20 of the Wardens, 10 of the Wardens. They've got Ethereal Blessing, Lambert Light, and Total Eclipse. And then there's 20 Sentinels, 10 Sentinels, 10 Sentinels, and they've got the same spells. Then there is the formation that everyone's taking because it's fucking great. And then there's the Twin Stones, and then there's Geminids in there. And it comes to 2,000 on the nose. Now, I don't think this is a list that is, it's not a 5-0 cream the world. I think this is if you're genuinely interested in getting better at Age of Sigmar, it's lists like this that are really going to help improve your game, because there's so much to consider, and it does something in every phase. And because of the new Cathalar, which is in fact my favourite war scroll of recent times, because of her, it actually interacts with the bravery and the battle shock phase as well. So you can actively affect that. So I love, it's like there's an extra phase that's opened up that you can sort of do damage in. So I really love that. So if I put this together for you then. So firstly, because of the Shining Company, you deploy all your chaps next to each other, and if they're standing next to two of their mates, they're -1 to hit, which is a wonderful boon, isn't it? The Stone King himself, he's got like a little bubble. It goes down as he takes damage, but if the enemy are within that range, they take another -1 to hit. So you can get -2 to hit on your troops without rolling any dice. That's just wonderful. You've then got Geminids as a spell to create that -3. And you spoke about this before, Sam, haven't you? -3 is the magic spot, because then no matter how good they are, they're probably hitting you on 6s. So you're taking so little damage. We talk about the Stone Mage a little bit. I like Iliatha because that's the only great nation that isn't forced to take a command trait, so you can choose your own. And I really like Majestic because it's a -1 bravery buff to enemy within 18 inches, and it's a +1 bravery buff to your own troops. Now you can, with Voice of the Mountain, is a spell that is cast on. I can't remember what it's cast on. I've got it somewhere, but I think it's an 8 maybe. So it's quite a difficult spell to cast, but it's -2 bravery to everything board wide. So that's a way of getting -3 bravery. You've then got how Lumineth Realm Lords interact with how they use their Ether Quartz. So if they munch on a piece of Ether Quartz, because of the Cathalar, she's near them on a 2+. Normally that unit would take a -1 bravery, but she can then pass that on to an enemy unit. So that's another -1 bravery that's available. So that's -4 bravery you can get it up to. Now, if you think about it, you've got 4 units of these archers in the background that have got a 30-inch range, and you can split your fire. So all you have to do to make a unit take a bravery test at -5 is kill 1 dude. So if you've got an army that's full of loads of different units, you can split your fire and just do loads of 1 damage everywhere, and then effectively have a load of bravery tests being taken at -5 or worse. So I just really like that. It's reasonably consistent to get off these spells because you've got the Twin Stones as an endless spell. So that's the one where you cast it and it starts off with a charge, and every time you cast a spell near it, it gets an additional charge, and then you can activate it to give yourself that many charges added on to your casts. So it's a way of, you've got so many, and the reason I've split up the Sentinels and the pikemen, etc., is to get as many spells being cast as possible, so you can really make use of that endless spell. So you can make sure that Geminids goes off, for example, consistently. You can make sure Voice of the Mountain goes off consistently as well. The Stone Mage is also really useful because if the big stone dude stays near him, he's always fighting at his max amount of ability. His chart isn't going down each time. So he's like damage 5 with one of his attacks. So he's absolutely boss. So there's just... sorry, I've just waffled on for ages then, didn't I?
No, I haven't. Did you say you had 4 units of 10 archers?
There's 1 unit of 20 because you want to... One of the spells is Lambert Light, which is reroll hits. So I quite like the thought of a unit of 20. The way I envisage it, when in your deploy, so you've kind of got 3 units here that are a bit... When I used it on TTS, so this is what a bit of experience has taught me. Originally, I had it as a 30 and a 20 for the pikemen and 2 lots of 20 for the sentinels. But what I found was I couldn't cover the board enough, so I felt quite exposed. And when I was doing spells, I really wanted to get off Lambert Light, which is the reroll hits. But I couldn't. It's just not a better spell than make your guys do a mortal wound on a 5+, which is what the Sentinels do. When they've got a 30-inch range, they can move 6 inches, so it's a 36-inch threat range. And if they roll a 6 to hit, they do a mortal wound, right? They've got a spell that makes that a 5+, they do a mortal wound. So it's fucking incredible. But I found that I was never actually casting Lambert Light, which is the reroll hits, which I think that gives you like, what's that? It's like 10 mortal wounds it does, or some such. I mean, being able to deliver 10 mortal wounds plus
at 36 inches
threat range, it is ridiculous. And also, they've got Speed of Heesh. Oh, actually, I've made a mistake on this list. I'll have to change it. One of those units should have Speed of Heesh. Speed of Heesh is double your move. So, as I was saying, the way I envisage it, you've got a couple of units of 10, not necessarily in shining company, just sort of strung out at the back to protect your backfield, assuming that you're fighting some teleports. You can then put that 20 unit in the middle, and then you've got 3 units that you don't really care about if they're not getting buffed, being able to then buff that unit. So you could double its move to 12, and you could give them reroll hits. And I think that's... So this split here is, I think, reasonably optimal. Going back to the bravery nonsense as well, one of the things that you can be really worried about is people using Inspiring Presence to stop units running away. One of my favourite spells is Total Eclipse. It means that they've got to use 2 command points to use 1 command point. And that's
it's a pretty egregious spell, let's be honest.
It's insane. It's so good. And it means that this is a 3-drop list. So if you're outdropped and they make you go first, and you can get Voice of the Mountain off, and you can get all these little bits of chip damage off, most armies don't start the game with 2 command points. Most armies only have sort of 1, don't they, in a battalion, or they buy 1. So it just makes it very difficult for the opponent to use Inspiring Presence to stop you doing all these multiple battle shock tests that have got all these bravery modifiers to them. And you can make it even worse, because the Cathalar's got an ability where if you need to make a bravery test yourself and your unit's within range, on a 2+, you stop that, you pass that bravery test, and you add the amount of casualties you've taken and you put it on an enemy unit. So like that -5 that can rack right up to a huge battle shock test that needs to be taken, and you could have got total eclipse off where their command points are buggered. So I love what I really like is the interaction here. Is there's so many little. It doesn't look like much on paper, but there's so many ways to play this list. There's so much you can do. Like if you're in a matchup and you need to be tanky, you can cast Ethereal Blessing, and that makes one of your units become ethereal, and you can use an Ether Quartz segment to give yourself +1 armor save. I know that doesn't work, does it? No, it does work, doesn't it? Because it's not. You ignore Rend, don't you? You don't ignore when you use an Ether Quartz bit. Do you?
Yeah, +1 save.
Do you ignore all modifiers, or do you just ignore Rend? You can Ether Quartz and become ethereal, can't you?
Sorry, say that again.
We'll soon find out.
No, you can't add +1 save and then be ethereal.
You can't. Okay. Well, if you need to be tanky though, you could be ethereal on a unit of 40. The battalion that they're in, if you're within 3 inches of another unit, you get to reroll ones for your armor save. So it's like everyone's got Mystic Shield, which is a cracking. And because you're in Iliatha, every time you use a command point yourself, a unit next to you can use it for free. So if you want to give those, if you don't get Lambert Light off, for example, but you want to give them reroll ones to hit, you'll be able to use, that'll be for a command point. That's 30 of your dudes that are getting it. So it's just these little. If you imagine it, it's all these little edges. I think make up a vast blade eventually. I'm not even particularly explaining it very well because I've not done this for a little while. But hopefully you can see, and you imagine all your army itself is sort of -2, -3 to hit. It's just, and there's what I really like about the Lumineth Realm Lords.
I mean, you kind of undersold that, and you imagine your whole army is -3 to hit. Is not like a small statement.
It's not. Is
it? No. Imagine my whole army is impervious to damage, and then I can do other things. Is a good kind of jump off point for a list. If I was running spiky bits right now, I'd be like, make an army that doesn't take damage. Plus, that would be my title, I think.
There's a couple of other things as well. So a really fun thing is the Iliatha item is the amulet. If you die in a 4+, you come back to life with all your wounds, and you don't take any of those excess wounds. You know, like before you did with the Seraph items. Incandescent Retrices. It doesn't work like that. It's just a flat, you're alive with all your wounds on a 4+. And I love things like that because that can really trigger your opponent when you roll it. And then, but the probably the better item to have, the second item for the Cathalar, is the one that allows you to help out with your casts. But the one I like is the Phoenix Stone. If a character dies within, I think it's 6 inches, 9 inches, or 12 inches, I can't quite remember. But if they die near her, on a 6, they come back to life with all their wounds. So if your Stone Mage is near your Cathalar, they've got a 58% chance of surviving the first time they die. Wow. Or what's even more hilarious is if your Stone King dies eventually, then on a 6 he comes back to life with all his wounds. Now that is a game. That is a fucking flip the table moment, right? And it hasn't happened yet in a game, but I'm sure if enough people do it, then it will happen. And that's what I want to hear about. He himself is absolutely nuts. He's got a great shooting attack. It's got like a 30-inch range, and it wounds on. Is it either hit on a 2 or wounds on a 2? It's
wounds on
bloody.
A 2. Yeah.
Wounds on a 2, yeah, and it's like D6 damage. So there's just lots of ways that this list can do damage at range with lots of minuses to people's bravery, and you're sort of staying alive yourself. I really like my favourite thing about the Realm Lords. Now, I'm not a narrative player. I don't really give a shit. I never read the stories in battle tomes. I don't pretend to care about the colours that I use on my armies, etc. But when I was using this, when I was putting them down on the table, I wasn't even physically putting them down on the table, it was on TTS, but when I was setting them up in Shining Company, got a wonderful image of elves. You know that scene at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings where all the elves go shing, 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 along the line.
Yeah.
You know, I've got that imagery in my head. I was like, fucking hell, it felt like, and because I was placing them down in a formation, it felt like old Warhammer. You know, you had to put them down in different formations, didn't you? So I thought it was a really nice nod to the old game. And even the Stone King himself, he's got a rule at the end of combat, you can push units back an inch and then pile in again. And it reminded me of like, 300. Well, it's just fun but that's actually quite a useful rule to sort of push people off objectives eventually. But yeah, it's just like I say, I don't think this list is going to go 5-0 without a great deal of effort. But I think lists like this that do something in every part of the phase, that you really have to consider where you're deploying to get. I mean, every army needs to be deployed well, right? But there's quite a few choices here. Do you keep your characters together? Do you set up in Shining Company, or do you string them out to try and protect your backfield, etc.? Because I don't think you always want to be deployed in Shining Company. But there's just a lot going here. There's a lot of little synergies that I think build up to something that could be quite useful. And I've had some great success, actually running it. And I've had a lot of fun running it. But I've not stopped talking for about 10 minutes. So.
Well, Sam, what do you think? And also, you've got a list to share with us, right?
Yeah, I think firstly that list is really cool because there's heaps of elements that can operate independently, but when you start layering it and all the synergies come out, that's when it starts to become super interesting. I like your determination to continue down the bravery route. I think every man and his dog's immune to battle shock at the moment, but that's okay. Let's hold out hope that eventually it swings back around.
Well, it fucks up eels.
I've played too many games against those.
Again, imagine playing eels. So they're what? Bravery 6. So you kill an eel, and they're at -4. Like they've got a real, and you do that against. So they're all MSU. So you kill one eel, in 4 different units. Then they've got a real chance of just dying in droves. So I think
in theory that's good, but the only problem is you're not killing an eel. You're killing one Aether wing. Because you got to shoot the closest unit, but otherwise, yeah.
Well, they're going to die pretty. That's a good point.
I think it's a fair point. I think, and the fact that everyone can do mortals, and you've got dudes with 3-inch weapons, and you've got a monster, and it does sort of evoke that imagery of that. The elves, like, I don't like elves. I'm more of a dwarfs man, but like this whole idea of a group of shiny elves is pretty cool. So, I think yeah, look, obviously there's some stronger builds in the book, but that would be really cool to play. And that battalion gives you so much versatility. It gives you all the things you want in your army anyway. But then you drop in, what were your 3 drops then? Or how many drops was that?
I think most of the list was 4. So it's quite a good little, I think 3 drops is a nice little sweet spot, isn't it?
Yeah, I think 3 gets you underneath.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at the moment.
And I guess the real question is which armies are dropping lower than that, and if they are dropping super low like Tzeentch, can you handle that first turn punch if they decide to go for it? The problem is, like, a lot of people talk about that first turn alpha strike from Tzeentch, but they really put their dick in the wind when they do it. Like, so they have to deliver in that situation, and I don't think because of especially because you can just add +1 to their armor save for the whole, not for the whole army.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. They can really like defend some of those key elements, but and then it's a good one. Sam, what did you what would you like to talk about?
Cool. So I've gone with Tzeentch, but Tzeentch in Slaves to Darkness. So I've been obsessed ever since Darren sort of inspired me a long time ago with his chariots list. So the chariot list was a bit wild, but but it had a few elements to it that I thought there's something there. And for a long time at my club, we've been mucking around with getting that Ruinbringer warband battalion, which is a heap of mounted stuff, and a Karkadrak Lord, getting that to work using Horsemen. And we've been playing big units, like units of 10 heaps of those, a couple of 5s, because they can retreat and charge. and the battalion gives you impact hits on the charge. So that was really cool. And if you had +1 to hit, but unfortunately under this GHB, the Marauder Horsemen went up. They went up 20 points, so they went up twice as much as Marauders on foot.
Like a dartboard. Just. Well, what was that? That was a triple. All right, 20 points up.
That didn't make too much sense. But fortunately, when they were spinning that wheel, they also decided to drop Chaos Knights by 20 points. So I think that there's some play in the Ruinbringer Warband with the Chaos Knights. That's the list that I've gone with. And we're in the Despoilers sub-faction. So what that gives us is Demon Princes get a 5-up after save. Demon Princes heal wounds in the hero phase on a 4+. And if a Demon Prince moves next to some terrain, it can make it pitch black, which means that you cannot see through it. So that means it's a really good way of protecting you against a lot of the shooting out there. That won't work against the list that Darren just described, because those guys don't need to be able to see what they're shooting. But against the rest of the meta, it's really good. So in the list, then I've gone with a Demon Prince of Tzeentch as the general. He gets an 18-inch bubble, and any Tzeentch units ignore spells on a 5+. And that's not save against spells. That's just ignoring the spell flat out. So they ignore debuffs as well. And when that's coupled with Chaos Knight to have a 5-up mortal wound save, it means you're getting a roll to see if you ignore the spell. And then subsequently you see how many mortal wounds they do, and then you get a save. So it's effectively a double save, but it's even better because you can ignore debuffs, which is massive. So we've got the Demon Prince of Tzeentch, and his ability is really awesome.
Come back to
the Demon Prince.
We just lost you at Demon Prince, Sam, that's all.
All right, beautiful. So his command ability as a Tzeentch Demon Prince is +1 to cast for Slaves to Darkness Wizards, which brings us to the next guy on the list, who's Bellicor, who's for me, he's going toe to toe with Croak at the moment in terms of the best value for cost in the game. So Bellicor has his innate ability on his War Scroll, which can shut down a pivotal unit for up to 2 of their turns, because it's until the start of your next hero phase. And then I've given him this spell, Whispers of Chaos, and that
one day.
Is that the one where? So Whispers of Chaos is the one where it shuts down a unit's move, isn't it? I think. If
the internet here is just trying to build as much tension as it can. It's really sort of trying to hype this up.
I'm enjoying it.
So he's got Whispers of Chaos, which is this awesome spell that's deficiency is that it's only 12 inches in range. And the way that it works is you roll a dice for every model in the unit you target. 6 is it's a mortal wound, and they can't move.
So nuts. So good.
Yeah, they can't move at all.
Until your next hero phase.
So you can shut someone down for 2 turns, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. And the problem with that generally is that it's a 7 to cast and that it's only got a 12-inch range. But in this list, you can pre-game move Bellicor, so you can move him 5, and then he's small enough that he can jump on a Balewind. So what that means is that effectively he can cast at 27.5 inches. So that means if you go first, that you can reach out 27.5 inches, hit one of their big units. You can use your command points to add to his casting. So you can get him on +3 to cast usually. And then you cast that, stop a big block from moving. You use his innate ability to stop a hero or whatever from doing what it needs to do. And you can really shut down a big component of their army. And at the same time, you've got 6 units of Chaos Knights running around in that battalion from earlier, and a Karkadrak who's got the always strike first artifact. So what happens is your Demon Prince fights first, the Karkadrak fights first, 7 units in the army do mortal wounds on the charge. Everything's got a 4-up save, rerolling 1s, a 5-up mortal wound save. It's a shitload of wounds. It's fast. It's tanky. It's only 3 drops. It can afford to go first. and then give away the double because of those things that Be'lakor and the innate tankiness do. Or you can choose to go second and play for the double because you're an army of knights and you can try and charge into them and hit them. And then the other thing that you can do in this army is that it gets D3 pre-game moves. That's the command ability that I've given to the Demon Prince. And you can move the Be'lakor and the Demon Prince before the game, nudge them 1/1000th of a millimeter next to terrain and use pitch black. So before the game starts, you can turn pitch black on, and then you can give away first turn against shooting army. So against Seraphon, I think you could actually give away first and play for the double, whereas in some other matchups, you might take first, go and score, get good board position, and try and do the Be'lakor tricks to freeze them out. So I feel like it's really strong. I love the Slaves to Darkness book. It's probably my favorite book that GW dropped last year. And there's heaps of flexibility because you could flip it around. You could get Marauder Horsemen in there. You could get Chariots in there. You could actually, I feel like you could play this for 6 months and just occasionally change a character or swap some units, and it could sort of still feel fresh.
This is why I love this doing these shows, because or hearing content like this. I didn't even realise that Be'lakor could go on a Balewind. So I just
it's not a monster. Not a
monster,
monster,
right?
Even
on a Balewind. That's fucking nuts. That pre-game move, and that's the sort of thing that there's a bit, and you'll explain that to someone, but until they experience it, they're not going to put it all together. So unless you specifically tell them, be careful, I can do this if you're a good chap, that's the sort of thing that's really going to catch people out, isn't it? That's nuts. That is nuts.
Or alternatively, you tell them, you say, this is 27.5 inches, and then all of a sudden their Hearthguard Berserker block is 5 inches deeper than it used to be. And you're going, happy days, that's perfect. You're out of the game.
Straight away. I love anything that gets value without actually doing anything. That's fantastic. You're affecting your, and that's so apt for Be'lakor as well, because that's all about money.
But also the double shutdown is massive.
Right.
Yeah, the double shutdown with the spell plus Be'lakor's innate ability, and I mirror your thoughts also, Sam. I think the Be'lakor is like almost auto pick at the moment in Slaves or in any Chaos list. You write Chaos and you just be like, Be'lakor is in there, because so cheap for what Be'lakor brings. It's wild. So yeah, I love that. Also, it would look amazing on the table, because what is that? 10, 20, it's 15, 35 Chaos Knights on the table would look
35,
would look so rad. It would just look so awesome.
So you go mainly in sorcered weapons for the Ren, but you take one big unit of 10 with the Lancers, because 10 with the Lancers, like Ren 2, damage 2 on the charge, that's a real hammer. That can really smash some stuff, particularly when you've done some chip mortals from your charging anyway, and you've got those two characters that are good at clearing chaff. So one of the things I like about being able to fight at the start of the combat phase is you can line your knights up with chaff and know that your Demon Prince or Karkadrak will clear that out before it's your turn to pile in. And then, you can start doing those things where the knights maybe are 4 inches away from what you want to fight, but you know you're going to kill the screen that's in front of them before it's their turn to activate. And anything that's playing around with that in the combat phase, and maybe you're getting 3 or 4 activations in a row, is really awesome.
If they try and play around that as well by leaving their units further back, that gives you an opportunity to fly over with your princes anyway. So they're kind of fucked if they do, they're fucked if they don't. Again,
because of Be'lakor's spell and the ability to you can get plus 5 to cast in the first turn. That's the best you can do, because you get D3 command points for the Demon Prince's artifact, 1 for it being turn 1 and 1 for the battalion. If you get plus 5 to cast, they probably won't. They may not have screens, because it's like, shit, if we set up the screen, they could freeze the screen, and then my whole army's stuck. The stuff that's sitting behind it won't be able to move around. It's almost like they've cast a big endless spell for you or something.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great in doubles with Ideneth and their prayer that turns off flying. You just turn off flying and then make that screen not move. That'd be great. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. I was hoping you were going to put more chariots in there, Sam. But
0.
I do feel you've improved my life somewhat anyway with the Be'lakor trick. So thank you for that. Oh, mate, with that, I can't. My mind's buzzing. I've got loads of things I could do with that. That's cracking.
There you go. All right, Darren, what's your last list? By the way, Sam, I obviously loved it, but I pretty much love everything both of you do, so
Cool.
I don't feel it needs to be said. But Darren, what's your last list?
So I'm often approached for sort of ideas, or people will run a concept by me, and he's another Australian fella, isn't he? Chuck.
Yep.
Charles Black.
Charles Black, wonderful man.
Yeah, he came to me with like a list. He was like, "What are your thoughts on this?" And we ended up sort of creating this. I want to talk about this. I've called it Nakor Hayes because he's Nakor on Twitter, in honor for him being the original sort of the concept man. You don't see a lot of Mortal Slanesh, and it's in they've got an additional sub faction on top of Pretenders called what's it? Lurid Haze. That's the one, isn't it? Lurid Haze.
Ridiculous.
Isn't it? It's for me. It's really flown under the radar. Like, it certainly flew under my radar. And when you combine it with Archaon, I think there's some real tasty things here. So I'll take you through the list that we've got. The run that was sent to me originally was Archaon, and then I think to lower drops it was the Beastman Slanesh battalion in there, and then there were some bits and bobs. And the first thing I mentioned was, well, actual fact, this would probably do better, and it would fit in the Slanesh Slaves to Darkness Pleasure Bound battalion, because that can go in Slaves to Darkness and it can go into Slanesh. And I don't think he realised that. And what it does is it makes it a one drop for a start. So that gives you all sorts of control, doesn't it? I think one drops, there's so few of them about now as well, that one drops are pretty cool. So I'll take you through the list. So it's Lurid Haze Invaders Host. We've got a Chaos Lord. He's the general, and he's got Feverish Anticipation, which is what you have to take. That is everyone within 12, wholly within 12 or within 12, I'm not sure. They reroll charges. So that is great for an army that wants to be in melee. And then he's got the Rod of Misrule. The Rod of Misrule's nuts itself. In your hero phase, roll the dice. On a 1, you give your opponent a command point. On a 2 to 5, you get a command point. On a 6, you get D3 command points.
Yeah, it was a super common artifact in the Slanesh builds previously.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you'd see Slanesh armies like turn 2 or 3 with like 11 command points, and you'd be like, why? What is happening? Yeah, it's just all the time.
Well, this list is super command point thirsty. So that's a super useful one. It's then got a Chaos Sorcerer Lord. We all know what they do. They've got a bit where they can point at a unit in the hero phase and give them reroll armor saves. And obviously they've got that great spell, reroll all hits and reroll all wounds. He's got the Oil of Exaltation, which is +1 wound. You have to take that, and you have to take Feverish Anticipation to be Slanesh. But I don't mind it, actually, because it's another summoning point. Every time you take a wound, it's a depravity point, isn't it? So it's quite good. And then he's got Dark Delusions. Don't even know what that does. I'm always going to be casting his War Scroll spell to reroll hits and wounds. And I'm always going to be putting on Archaon, who is in the list, who's great in Slanesh. Slanesh, on any 6s to hit, they get an additional hit, don't they? And if they're over 20 models, they get an additional 2 hits, which is cracking. So with Archaon, if you can get the Chaos Sorcerer Lord's reroll hits and wounds off, that's more chances of people being in his sword, and that's all I want from an Archaon game. There's then 20 Chaos Marauders, 15 Chaos Warriors, a Chaos War Shrine, the Pleasure Bound Warbound, and the extra command point. Now, going back to Lurid Haze, that allows you, it's fucking nuts what it does. It allows you to deploy D3 units off the board, then come on 9 inches away from the enemy, 6 inches from the edge. So the way I sort of envisage it, the reason there's Marauders in this list, you probably want more Marauders. You can piss about with the Marauder Chaos Warriors or even Knights. That isn't really, they're interchangeable. But the reason I've done this is the way I envisage it, on average, you're getting 2 units off the board. So you can have 1 unit of Marauders on one side and 1 unit of Marauders on the other side. You're a 1-drop, so you've got this option. And they've got that ability where you roll 2 dice and you can turn one of their dice to a 6. So that 9-inch, and they get +1 to charge. So they need, on a double 1, they fail a 9-inch charge. That's fucking stupid, isn't it? So they deploy off board, come on, and they've got a 35 and 36 chance of making their charge. There's 20 of them.
They went up 10 points, Darren. So your list is probably completely fucked.
Exactly how much you wanted.
Was that double? Was that only 10 points? Yeah. Fucking stupid. Yeah. So I mean that's bonkers. And there's 20 of them. So in that initial charge, any 6s are going to be lots of hits. So they're just a really good unit. So that's 2 good white little pinning units. The battalion itself, if someone's died in the melee phase, and this unit's near them, when they activate, they can pile in 6 inches as well. So that's another thing that's super useful. So I quite like that. But the other thing that Lurid Haze does, and this is what I didn't realise before, it's a command point, and you get +1 armor save.
Yeah, that's the thing on Archaon. That's so good, man.
Well, when you combine that with the Chaos War Shrine, so the Chaos War Shrine uses his prayer, uses the Nurgle one, so you're not just, even though you're in Slanesh, you're not limited to.
Yeah, you get them all.
So that's a way of getting Archaon with a 1-up save. Whoa, fucking nuts, right? And then you can give reroll armor saves automatically with the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. And so basically, you've pinned them in with these 2 lots of Marauders, and then you've got Archaon wandering up the board with a 1-up rerollable save, 6s to hit. People have got a reroll, which is one of his innate abilities. I mean, that's fucking bonkers, right? And then he's got, if the Chaos Sorcerer Lord is got his spell off, he is rerolling all hits and all wounds. And then the Chaos General, the Chaos Lord, he's got a command ability whereby you can attack twice. So you can fight twice with Archaon. The reason the Chaos Warriors are in there is they're coming up, they're protecting your backfield, right? They'll have a 3-up save. And as you mentioned earlier, they've got a 5-up mortal wound save, which is fucking cracking in this meta, isn't it? And a 3-up, they've got an innate ability to re-roll their armor saves. So they've got a 3-up re-rollable save with 30 wounds. And like I say, it's just 1 drop. It's got a fuck ton of command points, and you need those. It's got lots of ways of getting in your opponent's head. If they don't fucking deploy correctly, they're pretty buggered. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? I quite like this.
Yeah, I think you missed one tiny little bit of tech, and that's the battalion, right? So it gives you a 1 drop, but it does this other thing which is really cool, is that it gives you a 6-inch pile in until your next hero phase. So if you do it in your turn and then your opponent gets a double, you're getting 3 consecutive turns of 6-inch pile-ins, which is really good, particularly when coupled with the Chaos Lord's command ability. So that in an objectives game, that means you can do some really good techie shenanigans.
I didn't even realise that. Yeah, that is so. So just to clarify, it's my turn. That's activated. I've won the double turn. I've then charged with Archaon and a unit. They've killed the screening unit. Then Archaon can pile in 6 inches.
Yeah, if you've lost something, keep compiling until your next hero phase. So it lasts for ages.
Yeah, that's that. Oh yeah, I did miss that. That's naughty. That is naughty.
It's really good. It's tricksy. There's heaps of little things you can pull off because of it.
Also, Archaon's base being so big, the 6 inches actually helps him jump a screen in some cases, or not. Have you ever done that thing where it's a line and then you jump over the line? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are hearing me twice, but I'm hearing myself now, and it's
no. I agree with that. If they've strung out like a unit of skinks, for example, he can pile in 6 over them. That's nuts. That's very good, isn't it?
Yeah, really good. I also think I said this on Warhammer Weekly when we did the GHB, because Vince was like, Slanesh is dead, and I was like, just put Archaon in there. Like, he's a big ass monster. It's also depravity.
You've gone.
My audio. Okay, you keep talking.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, you're back.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Good. Everyone else can hear me, but you can't hear me. My co-hosts.
It's the
Which is an
internet, Tom.
interesting change halfway
You're
through
good. I
a
think
show.
it's Rob.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Where have you gone, Rob? Are you slagging off Rogue One as well? It was you that did it on your... Disney are coming down hard. Well, me and you will just chat then, Sam. You like
Yeah,
that? You can interchange the Marauders
sounds good, man.
for Chaos Knights if you want. I think you probably want a couple of units of 40, don't you, on the sides to be better.
Marauders are so good.
So good.
What are the Warriors? 270 points for 15 Warriors?
Yeah.
Are they? They're 90s, aren't they? Yeah, 270. Or you could go... Yeah, I don't know. The other thing you can do with all of those battalions is that the Chaos Spawn fit in all of the battalions, and they're only 50 points. So you can take them as filler, and then you can bulk up your units, which is what people do with the Plague Touch. So they get, 2 or 3 spawn, then big units for their battle line, and then the characters to support it.
I like Spawn anyway as well. I like their inclusion because you can use those to defend your home objective.
Yeah, just sit on your home. Exactly right. Block deep strikes, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I don't actually mind. I don't see them as attacks. I actually see them as having, a bit of use. And sometimes, is it the Slanesh one? You go 3d6. You move 3d6, or you can always run. One of them's really speedy, I think. So sometimes you can. I was playing Ben and he had a couple of spawn, and he just managed to roll like 17 and just wanged straight across the table and took one of my objectives that I didn't see coming. So yeah, I quite like Chaos Spawn as well. What a chance!
He might have been using like the 7th edition Beasts of Chaos army book for Warhammer Fantasy. I don't
know. Can you guys hear me?
No. I can now. Yes.
Yep. Amazing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing changed. I want you to know that. I did nothing. It just... Okay, fascinating. Well, I like all of those. I think I like all of those. I think it's nice that the big boy works in Slanesh. I mean, the big boy works in most of the factions, really. He's such a cheeky fellow. I mean, there's some good Slanesh builds with Archaon, obviously, when he's just rocked up by an exalted greater demon, because then obviously you've got fight last, you've got pile and attack twice, and one of the problems with the Chaos Lord is its ability to keep up with Archaon, right?
Yeah, well, that's another thing we did sort of mention there, is he's got his own way of making units fight on death, and they'll pile in 6 inches, which is nice, isn't it? And we've not even mentioned fucking depravity.
I did, but you couldn't hear me.
Oh, right. Well, that's it. He's got, depravity points of his own, and he heals D3 a turn, doesn't he? So he's just an absolute depravity farm. So I think that's a good like alpha strike, like get in your head, fuck them up. And if they deploy super defensively because they know you're coming on, again, like Sam mentioned earlier, you can give away the turn easier and play for the double. And then in the late game, you've still got... It's going to be really fucking difficult to kill Archaon with a 1-up rerollable save and a 6+ after death save because he's near the War Shrine. So you should have plenty of depravity points in the late game as well. So it's got game early and it's got game late. And it's... Yeah, I think Slanesh Mortal is decent. I think this is decent. Lurid Haze is definitely the best one. Absolutely.
Okay. That whole book, Ever Chosen, is just an awesome book, and I really hope they do a destruction equivalent, and I hope they do a death equivalent. So we got the Firestorm had all of the original cities of Sigmar. This to me feels very much like Firestorm, and I love it as a direction. It's really cool.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There's because basically it's all of the Slave Starters rules with additional rules, or it's some of the other Chaos books with additional rules. So it's kind of interesting. It's a bit like what Space Marine's got in 40k. Well, it's been great talking to both of you, and if you guys want to check out those lists, I'm going to put links in the show notes below. They'll be on the Honest Wargame website, so you can click on them, look on them, leave some comments. And see what you think and play them in your own. There's a link in the chat from Ulf, who's written a pretty fun Kairos host Arcanum list, which is fun.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, and also Babe anyway. So it's been a pleasure having you both on. Sorry about the technical issues. I'm not sure what happened there.
It wouldn't be a show without them.
It wouldn't be a show without them. Have you guys got any shout-outs you want to give before we head off for the day?
To everyone that's been with us for 12 months, for everyone thank you for those that have sent or messages. I've learned so much from you guys. Thank you very much for all those that are happy to share. I think there's been a culture in the community where you want to keep your ideas to yourself because you want to sort of take advantage of them on the table. And I think this has helped sort of get rid of that a little bit. And I think, so thanks for everyone that has interacted with me. I've not had any negativity in a year, which I think is wonderful. Thank you very much for that. I'm an absolute snowflake and very sensitive. I think I got one dislike once on YouTube with one of our videos, Rob, and I felt shit for a day. So thank you. It's only ever been positive things from people. So thank you for being with us for the year, and hopefully we'll keep doing this. Well, cheers, and thanks for being on, Sam. You're one of my personal heroes. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and you really have improved my life. I can't wait to go and play around with that Bellacore trick. That's wonderful.
Thanks, mate. I at the risk of making this sound like a circle jerk, I wanted to give you a shout out. So these shows have been awesome over the course of the year, and you've been so generous with your time in the DMs. I'm sure it's affected your actual life, the volume of feedback that you've been able to share with people. So thanks heaps for that. And like I say, you were the OG with the list of.
Oh, bless you. That's very kind. I'm going to go all red.
Have we lost Sam at the close, as they say? Let's hope not, but maybe. We did. Well, we lost him in the final moments.
Well, at least he had a chance to verbally masturbate me. That was wonderful. At least I didn't miss that.
Well, you guys are all great. Thank you very much. Like both Darren and Sam are two wonderful people who have made some great lists. You can talk to them and contact them, and they love talking to all of you, which is sweet. I have enjoyed stream streaking today with you guys. And I will be back. There's actually another podcast later where me and Owen Jackson are going to be reviewing the list for his TTS event tomorrow. You can join me again tomorrow as well for the stream streak, and you can check out all the hot news about the Super Series coming soon, which is fun. But look after yourselves, stay healthy, make sure you go for some walks and get around, and just always be kind to each other. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Fuck you, buddies. Goodbye.